That's staying in.
They were called Nasties, and they were nasty.
Some of the things that we've seen are so horrific.
These films not only affect young people, but I believe they affect adults as well.
An extravaganza of gory violence capable of depraving and corrupting those who watched it.
I have never seen the Video Nasty. I wouldn't. I actually don't need to see what I know is in that film.
And welcome back to another episode of Doing the Nasty podcast. This is season 2, episode number 6.
I think it was 6.
Episode 6. Yeah, it's June. Follows the months, Duncan. Episode 6. I'm one half of the voices you will be hearing on this episode. I'm Duncan McLeish, of course. I'll be joined, as always, on this season by a guy who is, I was saying a glutton for punishment, but we do get to talk about something kind of fucking awesome this week. My friend, my podcast comrade, an all-round great cunt, Mark. How's it going?
I love when you call people great cunts. I think that was like almost our introduction, or there's something early there about calling all of us Midnight Horror Show boys a shower of cunts.
Yep,
That's
shower
it.
of cunts.
Yeah. We're like, we need to get this guy on the show. This is gold.
He has a turn of phrase that I'm unfamiliar with, but I like.
Good morning, Doing the Nasty listeners. This was a super quick turnaround on this show. Duncan messaged me yesterday morning and was like, oh shit, dude, we should probably get Doing the Nasty done. I'm like, well, I probably can't do Sunday, but how about tomorrow morning around like 7 a.m. my time? I'm like, all right, let's do it.
I mean, if one of those movies that you have to discuss is Friday the 13th Part 2, I mean, technically it's only one movie you have to watch.
Yeah, I basically watched like a movie and a half because, I've seen Friday the 13th a fucking bazillion times. Although I think Part 2 is one of the ones I watch a little bit less. I think my go-tos are usually like 6 and 7 and 3 and 4 kind of.
Yeah, I think that maybe speaks more to your age with 6 and 7 though. I would imagine those are probably more in line for, those would be popular rentals. You know what I mean?
So I think the first time I became aware of Jason Voorhees and who he is, or like saw anything about him, was around the time Jason Goes to Hell hit like pay-per-view.
Oh wow.
I was thinking about this morning. Well, because we didn't have like cable or anything in my house until I was like 13 or 14. So if I wanted to watch it like this, I had to go to my grandma's house, and by the time I was like 12 or 13ish, I had just carte blanche to rent whatever I wanted at the video store. So I have a pretty distinct memory of renting Friday the 13th 1, 2, I think 3 and 4. And just watching them all in a weekend. But definitely a few years before that, when Jason Goes to Hell, I think it was just hitting pay-per-view. Do you remember on cable and satellite they used to have like a whole channel that just ran previews?
Yes.
I'm a fucking weirdo, and I used to like sit and watch those. I think I even have like some VHS tapes where I would just like record the trailers for stuff that like probably my parents weren't going to let me watch. And again, I'd have to go to my grandma's and be like, come on, Grandma, it's not that bad. And she'd let me watch it. But I think that was like roughly around when I first became aware of who Jason Voorhees was. And I also grew up with this kid named Kyle whose parents let him watch fucking anything from a very young age, that knew all about Jason and Freddy and Leatherface and knew the mythology and had seen all these movies a million times probably. So there was that, but yeah, I was at least a teenager by the time I actually started watching these movies. And yeah, these are, the Friday the 13th movies are like one of your basic food groups as far as horror goes. I think every horror fan goes back to these pretty frequently.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them so many times, it's not even worth trying to recount them. I mean, it's my go-to. It's my favourite franchise. He's my favourite horror character. And like unashamedly my favourite horror character, and as such like when this finally came up on the list, and part 3 is also on the nasty list as well, so we will eventually get into that, and my complete contempt for Shelley as a character, but he does get the hockey mask, so that's not too bad. I'm very much looking forward to swinging into that for sure. Now, I did come to a realisation, right, as I was prepping for this show, that since we brought Doing the Nasty back, there has been a global pandemic. We've had like a spike of kind of lockdowns throughout the world, and now open riots in the street. Almost every month that we record, something else really fucking gnarly happens and puts the world on its axis. So what I'm saying is, if the internet no longer exists next month, which it might not, and this is the last episode that you hear of Doing the Nasty, I love you all, listeners. Thank you.
It's been a good ride.
Thanks for spending time with us. I was waiting for the next shoe to fall, honestly. On this episode we will be discussing Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981 and The Nesting from 1981. That's right, a double bill for you. These movies could not be any more different if they tried, so I'm very much looking forward to get into a bit of banter on that one. As always, we will intersperse throughout this episode some voices from the Video Nasties doc DVD. I can't remember who does the intros for these ones, so this could be quite interesting. It depends which voice you get. Some of them, as the listeners will now know, are a bit kind of cannot be arsed talking. They're just like, oh, this movie here. So glad you put a camera on me to talk on this DVD about this fucking great movie, which I don't really understand. But then you get, like, every now and again you like get an Alan Jones who is wonderfully over the top and campy about things, or a Kim Newman who looks like a magician from 1983. But he's paying homage to magicians from 54 who paid homage to magicians from 1922. So you see what I mean. If you ever want, just type in Kim Newman into Google, and when you see him, you will understand that this guy should be sawing a woman in half instead of reviewing movies. Although his reviewing style I fucking deeply love. So I don't know who does the intros for these ones, but you will hear them anyway. So I think we'll just get into this, because I think there's a lot more to discuss on one of the movies. We won't give away which one that one is. Than there is about the other one, which had some things happen in it, but dear God, was it like pulling teeth. So let's I will give you dealer's choice, Mark, on this one. Which movie do you want to discuss first, The Nesting or Friday the 13th Part 2?
Let's get the Nesting knocked out while it's still relatively fresh in my brain.
I like that thinking, saving the best for last. Oops, did I just give away my feelings? So we're going to take a very short break. You're going to hear words from learned people, like I said, or semi-interested people. Then you're going to hear the trailer for the movie. When we return, we will be discussing a little bit of The Nesting from 1981, coming right up right after this.
The Nesting is one of those titles that I'm not entirely sure what it means. The film was, I think, made as Phobia. Probably had to change its title because there was that John Huston movie called Phobia that came out about the same time. Also, it's one of those things where the heroine is originally has agoraphobia. She's afraid to leave the house. But that actually doesn't seem to have anything to do with the particular story, which is a writer who discovers that the house she's rented is a former brothel and the site of a massacre that there are ghosts about. It's an interesting minor ghost story. It's one of those pictures that uses sort of interesting people in cameos. Gloria Graham is back in it. She'd had a certain exploitation record in Massacre Mansion and Blood and Lace. And she plays a ghost. John Carradine, who's like your step down from Vincent Price as a horror star, but he'd been at it for so long, and in the early 80s, with the sort of revival of horror, he started getting a lot more work. He's in things like The Howling and House of the Long Shadows and The Boogeyman. And so he became a sort of horror name again. And I think this is actually one of his best latter-day parts. So he gets some meat. Obviously, he's not in good enough shape to be in lots and lots of scenes, but what he does has a lot of impact. As a story, it's rather ordinary. Armand Weston, the director, had made some porn stuff previously under several names, and this seemed to be the movie he thought would launch him into a respectable, above-ground career, which he didn't. He didn't go on to make anything else at all and died in 1988. He does a good, solid, competent job on this, but no more. And the movie didn't really stand out enough, set next to any one of a dozen other people move into a creaky old house and scary stuff happen films. It's not as memorable as Silent Scream, for instance. It's not as memorable as Legend of Hell House. It's just another one of these haunted house pictures. Watchable enough on an afternoon, but nothing special.
Fear visits many places, but this is where it lives. The nesting. You cannot escape the fear. You cannot forget the face. You will not live until you've killed the nesting.
You are not going crazy.
Then what the hell is it?
It's when your dreams turn to nightmares, and your nightmares turn on you. It goes beyond the supernatural, beyond the psychological, beyond the realm of reason. The nesting. The horror grows. The mystery builds.
It's she. It's got to be.
The madness infects everyone around you. And then you're all alone. Just you and it. The nesting. It's the terror that hides inside your mind.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. You just heard the trailer for The Nesting, directed by porn director Armand Weston. Yes, this
They're
guy.
all porn directors at some point, it seems like.
Pretty much. I think that's how you, like, you know how, like, some people, like, nowadays you get into making movies by making a cheap horror movie? I think back in the day you just got into making movies by making porn.
There was still money in porn back then. Like, you could actually get, like, you know, a deal to sell a porn movie to porn theaters, which I think barely, if at all, exist anymore. And yeah, nobody pays for their porn anymore. So I think now you make the clever YouTube video that gets like 5 million fucking views, and if you're smart enough to be able to monetize that, then you get a little chunk of change. It's like, oh, I'll go make the short film, and then if you're lucky, your short film gets played at actual film festivals, and then maybe you get a feature if you're lucky. Yeah,
I think that sounds right. I mean, that to me, let's be honest, nowadays anyone can make a movie, whether or not as good as... Back in the day, there was an actual money issue in making a movie, because you had to buy film. Nowadays, you don't have to buy fucking any film. The Nesting is directed by Armand Weston, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Daria Price. We have some people in here that we should probably mention. We have, let's see, Robin Groves, Christopher Loomis, Michael David Lally, John Carradine in a blink and you miss him performance, honestly. Very little John Carradine in here, and I kind of get... I know why. He's like...
I think he was dead already, and they're pulling a Weekend at Bernie's on us.
Because he gets ill really quick. And
he
then
looks horrible, and he spends the whole movie in bed or a wheelchair.
We've got Bill Rowley, David Tabor, Patrick Farley, Bobo Lewis, which is the best name ever.
Bobo.
So good. And June Berry. The synopsis for this one is listed on IMDb as: a writer suffering from agoraphobia rents an isolated house so she can concentrate on her writing. She doesn't know that the house is a former brothel, which feels like that should have been disclosed. But yeah, you never know. Real estaters, can I get an amen, anyone? And is inhabited by the ghosts of dead prostitutes. They're the worst ghosts because they charge you for the morning.
All these dead hookers are keeping me up at night. I want my deposit back.
They're in the fucking walls. Yeah, right. I'd never heard of this movie before. I thought I had. In fact, I was almost 100% sure I had, and it was some sort of... Until you actually read the synopsis properly, which I didn't do when I read it last week. I just kind of blitzed over it. I thought it might have something to do with maybe potentially insects, and you can kind of see why from the writing on the cover, and the fact that the weapon on the front cover is also a giant sickle. So I thought corn, children of the corn, insects in the corn. My brain was following a pattern that kind of made sense.
I still don't really get the title, The Nesting. Is that like...
Maybe that's...
like a phrase for like a where you lay with women of the night, I guess you'd say, or I don't get it.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just a porn term.
It's a leftover porn title. They already had the poster. They're like, whatever, let's just make a movie about dead hookers around this.
I don't like, so yeah, like, so I knew very little about it, and I watched it, and I mean, a couple of things I want to get out of the way first, and then we can maybe delve into a bit more. This movie is almost an hour and 3/4 long and feels double that length. This movie has some serious pacing issues. That's not to say that there aren't some interesting things that happen. They're just so few and far between until the absolute crazy batshit bonkers ending. There's a whole lot of road to toe to get to that point. The second thing is, the musical score at times is really, really good, and then at other times feels like used clips from Columbo episodes never aired. It really, I don't know. Columbo gets a lot of mentions on this, but I feel
we're fans.
Yeah, I just feel it does, man. It's like like the car pulls up, she gets at the car, and I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? And then the last thing is, this might have the most annoying boyfriend character in the history of cinema. Right.
He's awful, and his name is Marcus, which further refines my opinion that almost every other either Mark or Marcus I've ever met in my life was a fucking tool or an asshole. Without fail, I've met two good dudes named Mark, and the boyfriend in this movie is not one of them.
Oh, it's like it's the pithy one-liners. Everything's a one-liner, and none of them
so
are funny.
Funny. He thinks he's so fucking hilarious through the first third of this movie, and I knew 20 minutes into this movie, I'm like, this movie is about gaslighting. This is a movie about a woman who has a pretty serious mental illness, and none of the dudes in her life take her seriously.
Yep, and you are 100% spot on. But for 1981, right, there are some interesting elements in this movie, specifically about the view of men on quote-unquote hysterical women.
Yep.
The way, the kind of the hierarchy of society is leveled that way, right down to a super condescending psychiatrist whose cure for agoraphobia is move to the country. I'm like, what? Yeah,
buy a gigantic house that's isolated out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that'll cure your agoraphobia. And I was like, what the fuck? And there's a great line in this where she counters him in a moment which I feel should happen in every single movie or TV show that has a psychiatrist character arguing with their client, where she's like, it's 7 years at $70 an hour. I've paid you and she gives the total amount of money, and I'm thinking to myself, that's enough to buy that's enough to buy this house, the land round about it, and the fucking all the prostitutes in there to work full time. You could set up your own brothel on the money that she's spent on you.
It's like $250,000, which is fairly accurate. I think even nowadays, like psychiatrists and stuff like that charge upwards of $100 an hour, depending.
Insane. Insane money.
Insane.
Yeah, exactly. But so she's like that. For that, you can at least come out and witness the fucking strange house. But yeah, so essentially we have a character here who, out of nowhere, out of the blue, she's a writer, and out of the blue just develops agoraphobia. She's suggested to go and rent a place in the country. She finds this place by some sort of weird happenstance, but feels that she has a connection with it. Her boyfriend is the most annoying man on the planet who should have died about 3 or 4 times in this movie, but somehow survives it at the end. And I'm like, that's the biggest cock tease in cinema as well. And then she just comes across a series of characters who treat her like a silly little girl. Although in saying that, maybe my favourite character in anything I've watched this week, out with Crazy Ralph, is Frank the Handyman, played by Bill Rowley. Frank is fucking amazing. He's like just the best character ever, who even at one point she's like, did you come into my room? And he's like, no, why would I come to your room? She's like, you did come in my room, I don't believe you. And he's like, I don't care if you believe me or not. She was like, you came in. And he's like, well, why would I come into my room? And she goes, you came into my room to use my typewriter. And he's like, I don't know how to type.
It's real hard to push the little clickety clacks and make it say something. I think what he meant is I can't read or write. Maybe.
Yeah, he's so sassy as a character. But
he's like chugging bourbon the whole fucking conversation too, and it's like 9 a.m. It's like I've met like maintenance dudes and groundskeepers just like this guy. Yeah, they're all fucking mega alcoholics.
Yeah, I mean it's dinner time somewhere, Mark. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's his breakfast right there.
So the boyfriend fucks off pretty quick because he's like, I've run out of one-liners. I'll be back later.
Get back to the city and isolate you some more.
So he fucks off, and then we spend a bit of time with Frank. Frank eventually is haunted AF because all the male characters that are fairly dismissive of Lauren, you know, end up dying in pretty nasty ways, and Frank gets the old workover by the ghosts, the old Beetlejuice Winona Ryder like lift at the end. Like he's like, jump in the line, rock your body in time. Okay,
he's got a really unconvincing scream too. He's like, ah.
It's the drink.
It's like, dude, you're floating in the air. Like most people would be evacuating their bowels and like be crying bloody tears because of what the fuck is happening to them.
What he doesn't realise is he wasn't drinking bourbon anymore. He was on Everclear, so he's fucked. But yeah, his death is actually one of my favourites, out with the horrible, like, run to the lake where he's running along and he clearly just jumps down a flight of stairs. Like, there's no, like, push or anything. He goes, oh!
That was a great stunt. They edited it just right so that it's clearly a stunt man that does the actual, like, just, like, Superman jump down a flight of stairs, and it looked like it hurt like hell, and then, there's a cut, and Frank stands up, basically.
Yeah, I mean, those are wooden stairs, and there's no padding. So, yeah, that's back in the day where a stuntman would do that, Mark.
You just do it. They say, you know, you're going to get paid real well for this, so you just fucking go for it.
Yeah, they just stand up, they walk it off. Unlike Frank, who ends up in the lake and then drowned by a sea of ghost hands.
Which is a really cool image.
It's a great scene.
It's like very Tales from the Crypt. I kind of love that.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 sequences in this movie where I genuinely thought, this is awesome. Why is it in this movie? Like, you're like, it's surrounded by like a lot of kind of melodrama and tedium, and then you get these great like the end of this movie, which we'll get to in a minute, is fucking great. Like I love the why it shows you why the house is haunted, where it replays the scene. It's brutal as fuck. But then we swap out the Frank character for Frank's weird friend who thinks did you laugh at his joke? Because I laughed a lot at his, I mean, I laughed to the point where I actually thought I was going to pee myself a little bit, where she's like, I'm you know, Mrs. Cochrane, and he goes, Cochrane, where did it run to? And I swear to God, pee was going to come out on it. I had to pinch the top of my dick to stop it. For a good 5 minutes, howling with laughter. And I thought, this feels like even the boyfriend's been upstaged by the weird mechanic hillbilly dude. It's the fucking greatest joke ever, but he turns out to be a bit, safe to say, nutty as a character.
Yeah, this scene definitely, like, I laughed a little bit at the joke, but I was really, like, kind of distracted by how legitimately unhinged this guy looks. Like, he doesn't look like an actor. He looks like a fucking crazy guy that they just found. And you know, like, they even try and they do the slasher movie thing in Warner, like, you don't want to go up talking to that guy. He's not very nice. And sure enough, she shows up and the conversation goes nowhere, and he turns into a fucking psychopath that wants to fucking kill her and tries to bite her fucking ear off like Mike Tyson. And I thought that, like, it's a weird scene because it feels like it's from a different movie. Like, it feels like it belongs in, like, Midnight or something.
Just a bit. It's so weird. And, like, so essentially, like, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. Like, there's more characters that come in and out of here, and then essentially we find out the crux of what is going on. The house that she has, weirdly, she has written about this house subconsciously, because she can never remember her dreams. She could never remember her dreams until she got to the house, and then she could remember her dreams, and that's like a key point here. She's like holding on to some sort of repressed memory and pain. But the house itself was a house of ill repute, housing ladies of the night. So it was a brothel. And during one pretty rowdy, I think is a word which doesn't quite encapsulate how bad this scene is, rowdy night, the men just decide to go a-killing. And this shows up towards the end, and one of my favourite sequences in the movie, because it's all done slow-mo, and you see like the prostitutes coming running out the rooms and stuff, and the men just gunning them down. And it's a deep, compared to the Columbo music we've had earlier, and Frank's inability to type, and the weird man trying to bite her ear, and the boyfriend's shitty one-liners, and the unhelpful psychiatrist. This scene is genuinely in here to show the trauma, the pain, and all the rest. It is very well done. It's a very well shot scene and choreographed, and it really works for me. But but then the movie kind of just gets even a little bit more bonkers, in that this is the first movie I can ever think of off the top of my head where, like, a ghost prostitute just sits down and chats to the character she'd been haunting. Like, just chats. They just have a conversation. She's like, you know what I mean?
Like J horror that seems to happen every once in a while. Like the protagonist will have a conversation with just sit down and be like, so this is the plot. This is what happened to me. Kind of and you'll do the flashback, and kind of like this movie does to the massacre at the brothel, basically. But it happens sometimes in ghost stories. And
yeah, I think more of it should happen, Mark. I think there should always... I think if you're haunting someone, there should be a dialogue. There should be a...
It's a lot easier than, playing coy the whole movie. I mean, there wouldn't be a movie, because a lot of these, like, ghost movies is them figuring out what is causing the haunting and what the backstory is on. And it's like... That's part of why it's just, a lot of the time I don't really get down with the paranormal haunting ghost kind of movies, is because they're all very similar, and, like, you usually know going in that it's a haunted house kind of thing, so it's just like waiting for the protagonist to figure out what the fuck is going on for a lot of it, basically, which I didn't necessarily feel a whole lot of that in this movie, but usually that's kind of how I feel about them.
That's the weird thing about The Nesting, is that we have this inquisitive author woman who you would think would want to start to put the pieces together, but she's very... It's not that what's happening in the house is not affecting her. It clearly is, but she's just very nonchalant about the whole thing. Like,
especially after the psychiatrist dies. I thought that, like, that there needed to be an extra scene in there. Like, I thought that was honestly super... If you're, like, even a little bit afraid of heights, basically she, like, gets lured out onto, like, the top story of the house, onto the, like, super slanted roof, and the psychiatrist pulls up, and it looks like she's, like, getting ready to fucking jump, basically. So he gets up there and tries to save her, and gets knocked off because she like lets out a scream like as soon as he's like almost over there, and he falls down the roof and rolls onto a fucking spike like through his eyes.
Yeah.
And it's gruesome and horrifying, and I think it's the first kill of the movie basically. And then immediately the next scene it goes into like the landlord's son basically, and her talking, and they're very nonchalant. She's not crying or traumatized or anything. It's almost like it didn't happen. And I was like, what the fuck, man? There needed to be another scene in there where they're like, you know, coping with something horribly traumatic, and instead it's just like this whiplash inducing edit to the next scene, and it's like nothing ever happened. And I really thought they were gonna go somewhere with that and make it look like she pushed him basically, and so there'd be some suspicion against her from the locals, and they didn't really do any of that.
Yeah, anything's better than what they do. Like, either one, she no longer wants to live in the place where the man who has been helping her through therapy for 7 years is dead viciously. Or, we pivot that to, well, she's been acting a bit strange. We've looked at the psychiatrist's notes. He says that you've been a bit unhinged recently, and, you know, you lured them out here. All this sort of stuff that you could maybe lean into. And I think that's where the movie became a bit of a frustration for me, is I think, in principle, there's some really cool ideas in here and some really good deaths, but no one really acts like a normal person. Like, no one acts like... And in a movie as well where... I think the premise of how men treat women, I think, is a really interesting thing, and we're getting a lot more cinema that tackles that nowadays, but back then it was so ahead of the curve. Although in the next episode we get to talk about a bit of female empowerment that I am 100% behind, and you will see that when we get to the reveal of what movies are on the next episode. But in the case of this one, it kind of feels like the guys, and also not something I would expect from a porn director to take that sort of approach, you know what I mean? But it kind of feels like he's got about 2 or 3 really interesting ideas kind of jotted down, but just doesn't know how to execute them. So as a result, what you get is a lot of attention to the death in the movie, which is handled, like I said before, really, really well. Even the ending, which is abrupt AF, I kind of dug, because that's how haunted house movies tend to end. They end one way or another. You either realise your house has been built on top of an Indian burial ground, or the house burns down. It's one of the two. There's never the two shall meet, Mark. It's one or the other. And I mean, it ends abruptly, but it kind of left me in the point where, one, I felt the movie was far too long. Like, really, really, really did a lot. It laboured a lot of scenes where I don't think it added anything to the narrative or necessarily, you know, kept my interest fully engaged. But 2, the biggest crime in the movie is that it teases really interesting ideas and really interesting subtext that we might be able to scratch the surface on, and it doesn't even go as far as scratching the surface. It really just throws them out as kind of byproducts of an interesting script without any depth. And as a result, it finished, and I was like, well, there was some cool scenes in there of death that I quite liked, and you know, a couple of really jarring scenes, specifically with the shooting of the prostitutes. But you know, and I mean, it's shot relatively well. I thought some of the cinematography was really good, but the score was kind of all over the place. Some of the acting is hanky as fuck, and some of the script as well, actually. And it kind of just lost me at the end. I didn't dislike the nesting. I just felt it was a bit bloated. Felt it was a bit overly long, and just didn't go as far as I wanted it. So this is the epitome to me of a straight down the middle average haunted house movie, without anything on top of it. Is there anything you want to kind of tag in at the end here before we give it a grade?
I think I like this a little bit better than you did. I was like honestly really surprised at how progressive this was, and like I said, I knew 20 minutes going into this that this is like kind of a pro-female like movie about a woman that, like, being treated like shit, but not like the other movies that we've seen on this list so far. This isn't the woman hating, like, torture a woman for 90 minutes kind of movie. This is actually kind of about something, and I don't think the agoraphobia stuff was done particularly well. Like I said, I think on the last episode, I think a lot better movie like about that subject is Citadel. from sometime in the 2000s. I think it's an Irish movie. Really good, and I think like the opening scene where she's like, I think going to work or something, and basically has a panic attack and runs back to her house was fucking comical more than anything. It really didn't like it was just silly and didn't really. It's like an old, outdated idea of like what anxiety feels like, basically. And like I said, I think that's just been done better in other movies. The rest of the movie, like the haunted house, basically parts of this movie, I would call above average, and that's coming from somebody that, like I said, I don't usually really get down with like ghost movies and haunted house movies, but I was actually kind of surprised how much I like this movie. I definitely agree. I think it's about 15 minutes too long, and if you cut some of that shit out and put a little bit more, like I said, there needed to be a scene of them like coping with stuff in there, basically. If you cut out just like some of the weirder, like dumber bullshit in this movie and put in a couple of scenes that kind of make it seem a little bit more realistic, I think you'd kind of be onto something. And yeah, there's a lot of cool imagery in this. I really dug the scene where she's like, I think she's having a dream like at the beginning, and she's just standing mostly naked in front of one of those like mirrors where it's like 3 panels of mirrors, so you basically get like 3 images of her. Kind of, it felt very Giallo inspired a little bit. And definitely the ending is very I guess you'd say like European horror kind of.
Totally.
It's a proto fuck you ending, kind of like it's extremely abrupt and doesn't like spoon feed it to you, basically. So I think my immediate reaction to it was, what the fuck, that's it, it's over. But in hindsight, I kind of respect the balls on him for doing that, and like I would call this an above average, smarter than usual kind of ghost movie, especially for 1981. I think this is pretty ahead of its time.
Yeah, this ending could be twinned with the ending of City of the Living Dead. It's just like the screen cracks on a scream and then falls apart, and you're like, what? It's like
roll credits,
and Fulci's just like just like laughing in the background. Yeah, I think we've done this movie justice. I would say Mark saved the day on this one. There is a surprisingly good copy of this up on YouTube, so go and check it out there. It's never been released in the UK, so it does have a Blu-ray release in the States, I believe. I can't remember who put it out.
That's Blue Underground, I think.
There you go. So it is available. You can check it out over there if you want to buy it, or just watch it on YouTube if you are so inclined. You know what we do, Mark? We do a bit of grading of such over here. We have different tiers of that grading. So we could have the old case dismissed, which means there's really nothing in here that would merit kind of a censor taking a second look at it, to be fair. We have a little bit of a slap on the wrist, which means, you did some stuff. I can see why the censors maybe looked at it, but ultimately it wasn't anything too egregious. We have community service. We're kind of starting to tread into kind of areas of wrong, shades of wrong, and then we have a bit of hard time, which is for those really nasty bad movies, which censors probably they had to go back to their homes and sit down with their families and have a stiff drink before being able to chat to them. How was your day, honey? I saw the most horrible thing. I saw one man eat another man's dick. So, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. So where do you come in on the nesting?
I think this is a case dismissed. There's really not like some of the violence is like it's pretty nasty in tone, but like what we actually see, I think, is pretty tame, and like it's just like this is far from the most egregious thing that we've watched so far, or that we will end up watching on this thing. So I can't really, I don't really know why. I guess maybe for 81 this was pretty shocking, but like definitely by today's standards this thing is tame as fuck. So I think this is a case dismissed.
Yeah, I mean I was kind of at first leaning towards this might be a little bit of a slap on the wrist, just because some of the content, kind of thinking the same way as you, but by 81 standards. And then I watched Friday the 13th Part 2 and I was like, oh no, this is vicious, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. This is a case dismissed. Like we've said, if there's anything in here we've talked about that kind of springs a bit of interest, the only thing I would say as a warning going into it is it does feel overly long, and it to be honest, it probably is. But yeah, it's worth checking out to tick off your list anyway. It's a movie I had literally never heard anyone talking about, didn't know anything about it, watched it, and surprised it held up as well as it did with its warts and all. Right, we are going to take a very short break. You're going to hear more learned people speak about Friday the 13th Part 2, and if they don't say nice things about it, I will track them down and rape them. With something nasty, I can't think of what. But yeah, I'm gonna find out who they are and get them put on the right path. Because you know what it's like. Some of these academics have a whole lot of Jason hate, and I never quite got it. He's a poor little boy here with a sack for a head. Kelpie's fucking back. His mum's head in a fridge. Right, so we are going to take a short break anyway. When we come back, it's time to finally get around to chatting about Friday the 13th Part 2 from 1981. We'll be right back right after this.
One of the quickest arriving sequels in history is Friday the 13th Part 2. It came within a year of release of the original one. Originally, producer Sean S. Cunningham wanted unrelated sequels in the mode of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch later on, a separate story. But when he realised that everyone was reacting to the ending of Friday the 13th with Jason, he knew he had to follow that character. The original script, indeed, was called Jason. Jason was originally played by Warrington Gillette, but he couldn't hack the stunts, and so an ex-cop, Steve Dash, took over. That's the reason why the bag's on his head, so you couldn't actually differentiate between the two. Now, Tom Savini, who did the wonderful makeup effects for the original, didn't like the idea of using Jason as the sequel character, and he was off doing the burning anyway. So Carl Fullerton took over. And it's interesting that everything that Carl Fullerton mainly did was cut by the MPAA in America because it was considered too strong. In fact, Friday the 13th Part 2 suffered because of the success of Friday the 13th. Everyone was amazed at what Paramount got through in that movie, and so decided to ruthlessly cut this one instead. The original twist in this film had Mrs. Voorhees' head in the fridge, and it was opened and she smiled at you, but that was considered way too over the top, way too supernatural, so that was completely axed by Steve Miner, the director, who actually was Sean Cunningham's gopher on Last House on the Left. And by the way, John Fury, who plays the character Paul Holt,
Jason's out there,
was actually born on Friday the 13th.
On a June night in 1980, Friday the 13th, 12 of her friends were murdered. Why should Friday the 13th, 1981 be any different? Friday the 13th, Part 2. The body count continues. 14.
All doomed. You're all doomed.
15.
God.
16.
Help!
17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23.
Sandra? Jeff?
The day you count on for terror is not over. Friday the 13th, Part 2.
And welcome back, ladies and gents. So, we are doing Friday the 13th Part 2. You just heard the trailer. This one's directed by Steve Miner, who is all over the fucking place. Steve Miner's one of these guys that it's only when you realise how long his career has actually been and how many movies this guy has actually fucking put out that you have seen, and chances are that you like, that it becomes like bizarre. Like, to this man's credits, you've got Part 2 and Part 3 of Friday the 13th. You've got House, which I deeply, deeply love, from 85. 89 they did Warlock. I mean, so, bit of Julian Sands flying about the place with his campy English accent. That makes me happy. Halloween H2O, Lake Placid. I mean, like, he's an interesting guy, is what I'm saying.
Directed a movie that my grandma loved, Forever Young, with Mel Gibson.
He did, which, once again, like, sit back and think, that was the same guy that did that? You have to kind of recalibrate the old brain. Did a ton of Dawson's Creek. So, I don't want to have to wait. No, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. He did, however, do that Day of the Dead remake from 2008.
We'll forgive him for that one.
Which wasn't all that great. And he does have a movie coming out relatively soon, according to IMDb, called The Exorcism at Lincoln High, which sounds like a movie I don't want to watch. But yeah, instead of reading this guy's credits, let's get into a little bit of information here. So this is obviously based on the Victor Miller characters, but the screenplay for this one was written by Ron Kurtz. The movie stars Amy Steele, John Fury, Adriana King, Kristen Baker, Stuart Charno, Warrington Gillette, Walt Gorney, Marta Cobber, Tom McBride, Bill Randolph, Lauren Marie Taylor, Russell Todd, Betsy Palmer, kinda. I mean,
recycled footage of Betsy Palmer.
Yeah, she wasn't like running back to do the second, but she's like, bring me back, bitches. It's Mrs. Voorhees time. And when I said that, I just imagined her as like a Power Ranger, like being assembled from different dinosaurs. And that just
I was thinking of professional wrestler, and she was about to give the Undertaker the chair to the fucking dome.
The synopsis for this one is: Mrs. Voorhees is dead. Spoiler alert. And Camp Crystal Lake is shut down. Oh, but a camp next to the infamous place, which feels like the sort of camp you don't want to be like in, is stopped by an unknown assailant. Yeah, we're the camp beside that camp that people died. Send us your kids for the summer. So this movie came out in 1981. This is the one that gives us Jason. Kinda. It gives us Jason as a character, but not Jason the pop icon that we all know and love to this day. We do get pretty vicious sackhead Jason, which does make me happy. I mean, this movie has been reviewed ad nauseum by everyone worth their salt who has a horror podcast. I've said it many times, and I've said it on this episode already. Friday the 13th is my jam. It's my comfort zone. It's my happy place when it comes to speaking about franchise horror, and specifically 80s horror in general. But Friday the 13th too, in a lot of respects, is the one where we start to go kind of off-piste a little bit. Because in that first movie, we're setting up this kind of... And yes, you can tick it on your bingo card for phrases that Duncan will say during an episode. There's a little bit of the giallo about it, a little bit giallo-esque, sort of picking people off in a, although it kind of moving into slasher territory, which is right out of the giallo handbook. It's the kind of giallo killer. We're only seeing the hands, the POV aspect. The killings are kind of brutal, and it's kind of moving that way for sure. Plus, I mean, this has a death directly out of a Bava movie, so that also helps.
Everything's shot very tight too. Like, there's not a lot of like big wide shots of stuff.
Nothing
There's
like
lots
that,
and lots of close-ups and lots of like quick editing. So I think definitely they borrowed that from Giallo.
Yeah, I mean, this to me is we're taking things again in an aspect, because this movie almost, because it's the sequel, it kind of resets the barometer a little bit. So there's a lot of deaths happening in the first part of this movie where we don't see the killer. Now, we are kind of in that point where we're like, who is the like, unless like you try to put your head in the mindset of this one here. It is not explicit or even implicitly laid out at the start of this episode that it's Jason that's doing the killings either. It's just someone is killing these camp counselors in or around an area where someone was killing camp counselors. So it kind of resets things, and then very, very quickly starts to transition to the Jason reveal, which I kind of love. It also kind of should have some things working against it. So it doesn't have Savini on special effects. Savini went off to do the burning instead of this, and I do love the burning. And the burning actually did make it on the bigger video nasty list.
Right.
So but because you can tell, because it's much more fucking gory and vicious than this one. However, some of the kills in Friday the 13th Part 2 are some of my favourites. Like the machete to the eye, into the face of the guy in the wheelchair.
Yep, the other Mark. That's the only similarity between these two movies. They both have a guy named Mark.
See, this
Mark is okay. I'm okay with what I call, probably rather insensitively, wheelchair Mark. He's all right. He's just trying to get laid, and he's not even being a jerk about it. This chick is coming on to him like fucking crazy and wants to see what's working, what equipment's working below the waist. I think she asks him at some fucking point.
Yes,
Jesus.
Which I mean, I mean, it was a different time, Mark. It was a time where you could say, "Show me your dick," and people just showed you their dick.
My mom warned me against girls like that.
But there's a whole host of likable. This is what I love about a lot of the Friday, not all of them, but a lot of the Friday the 13th movies is I like a lot of the characters in these movies. You know what I mean? I really do. I can't necessarily identify with them because I grew up in a different part of the world, but I enjoy spending time with them, and some of the characters die in ways which genuinely make me a bit he didn't deserve, or she didn't deserve that. There are other characters in here, there's a proclivity in the series to introduce characters who are quote-unquote funny, and they're not. There's the other shared DNA with the nesting, is one-liner characters who are not fucking funny. Get them.
When do we get the stoner characters? Is that part 3, the one the chick and the guy that looks suspiciously like Cheech Marin? I think that's either 3 or 4, and that's their only purpose is to make weed jokes throughout.
Yeah, and then we get characters like that all the way right through the rest of the franchise, because we have to have weed, which I imagine someone is going to take as a sample and put out there. Duncan's pro weed. Listen to him. Such a reefer head. I don't even know the terminology that speaks to my background. Yeah, drugs, man.
Reefer head.
I don't know what
reefers.
Look at Big Bob Marley sitting over there with his podcast. It's I talking about Friday the 13th, dope-up, man. But we've got I mean, the setup to this movie is almost identical, right, to the first one. It's just the same. It's the same idea. It's camp counselors being killed off. To be honest, that's most of the movies, but it's camp counselors being built off. But what we're getting here is a bit extra on top of this one. So the previous survivor dies at the start. She dies because she chopped Mama Voorhees' head off, and Jason just decided to put it in her fridge, which I fucking love. One day
that's iconic.
One day I want to open my fridge and just see a severed head that shouldn't be there, Mark. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then we kind of swing back into familiar territory. Crazy Ralph is here, which makes me happy. Crazy Ralph sadly doesn't make it out this movie, which doesn't make me happy. And as once was pointed out to me by long time co-host of my main show, Podcast Under the Stairs, the Baz, that is kind of ironic that a man who would spend most of his time hiding in people's pantries would die in a pantry.
He lived how he died.
He lived how he died, right in that pantry. But there's a lot of this place is fucking doomed, it's cursed. Also, it's ticking off all the beats, except what we're doing now is we're kind of setting out the Jason character. Now, you could argue once again, though, that when this movie finishes, kind of wraps everything back up, because we end on another dream sequence, which, you know, is here nor there realistically. And we, you know, I imagine if this movie had performed poorly, we might not have got a part 3. I mean, that's really, because it still isn't the massive fucking institution that it became.
Right.
So, I mean, it follows all those through. What I think it does really, really well, though, is I think the deaths are inventive and you know, quite nasty, and at times quite a bit mean-spirited. I love the location. I love, like, I never went, there aren't really summer camps in Scotland because weather. You know what I mean? So we don't have it. It's not a thing over here, realistically. That I love those as settings because I can't really relate to them, but they're always cool to watch. So all that stuff's done great. I think the performance on Jason by Warrington Gillette here is fucking brilliant. Like, just because he doesn't have anything. He's not the established Voorhees that we will get to know throughout the movies, where all these other guys are going to put their own spin on him. This guy is literally just running around with a sack on his head, like running through the woods. I love that aspect of it as well, but I think above all else, this to me, I mean, it's not a perfect Friday the 13th movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's fucking fun. This one, like, has its head set purely for titillation and entertainment purposes, and I really think it delivers on both of them in spades. Like, it knows exactly when characters should be getting killed off. It follows those beats almost textbook-like. And unlike the previous movie we discussed, I mean, this one is just under an hour and a half long, and I swear to God it feels like it finishes within an hour. It just moves at a great pace that I kind of get behind. I genuinely love this movie. I think it's so much fucking fun. What about yourself? I mean, it's probably worth. We are going to be talking about 3 at some point, and when we talk about 3, we maybe like expand the conversation out and maybe try and justify why part 1 doesn't appear on like a nasty list at all. Part 1 appears to slip right through the cracks in a way which feels kind of unsatisfying, in that there's a couple of deaths in part 1 which are gnarlier than part 2. Like, specifically the Baconator getting the old blade through the neck is, you know, when the camera lingers there, it doesn't take a, you know, any time off from that. Well, so it feels weird.
I'm sure Mama Voorhees getting her head cut off in the first one for the time was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's like, why is that not on the list, but part 2 is?
That's weird. I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, I once again, I can understand the Burning being on the list.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, actually, I take that back. Upon further investigation, part 1 is on the list. It's part 3 that isn't, which makes sense because it was in 3D and Shelley is a dick. So we'll get to chat about part 1. And you ready for this one? March 2022, Mark.
Oh god, if we're still fucking alive at that point.
March 2022 it's on the back run of the movies. So yeah, that makes more sense. I'm glad that I checked that before I made a total cunt of myself.
Yeah, I think by part 3, like, there had been so many movies because part 1 was a humongous financial success. It made Paramount a fucking ton of money. And then right as soon as like they were done and it made a whole lot of money, they cranked out part 2 really fast. I think it came out the next year and also made a shitload of money. So I think by the time part 3 came out, this has kind of become old hat, and the censors obviously still hated these movies because by the time we get to like parts 6 and 7, the censors were like, all right, Friday the 13th, we've had enough of your bullshit. We are going to take a fucking chainsaw to this film and cut out everything good, and that's good. That's the way it's going to be if you want to get an R rating, basically. So, but like, yeah, with these first 4, I think like they really didn't seem super limited by the R rating, because these did all come out with an R rating. I think they even talked about at some point with the first one of trying to edit it down. The same with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is fucking insane to me. Tried to get it edited down so that they could get a PG because the PG-13 rating wasn't a thing at the time, which is totally insane. But also, the first time I saw the first Friday the 13th was an edited version on Monster Vision on TNT with Joe Bob Briggs on one of his Halloween deals, like when I was like 10 or something. When nobody was paying attention, sat and watched the first Friday the 13th in a TV version. It was pretty shocking for a 10-year-old, you know. But yeah, a few years later, I saw the first, definitely the first 4 of these. I'm sure at some point I rented all of these, but yeah, there was a weekend where I just did the first 4 movies, and definitely I feel like parts 1 and 2 are sort of similar to like Hellraiser 1 and 2, where they're almost like companion films. You really kind of should just watch them back to back. And I kind of feel like maybe that's why I don't watch part 2 as often as a lot of the other ones, is because you kind of have to do both of them. I feel like, I mean, they're both great movies like on their own, but they definitely make really good companion pieces and feel like one big long movie basically. So, yeah, I've got a lot of time for part 2. I think it definitely it refines a lot of the things that feel a little bit loose and sloppy about the first one, just because I think they were all relatively new filmmakers at that point. And yeah, Steve Miner's no slouch. He's definitely got a pretty I think you hire Steve Miner if you want to get things done really efficiently. And I feel like the older I get, more I notice editing and pacing and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's like being on a cell phone for so many hours or however much a day has just like ruined my attention span. But I really start noticing when movies like get over an hour and a half long, and I really like, the movie's got to justify that shit to me. Like the older I get, like you're taking up my fucking time here. Like if you go over 90 minutes, you better have a real good reason for it. And I think I said the same thing about like the Resident Evil movie on the 2000 series, which is, man, editing makes such a big difference in how this movie goes by. Like when your editing is just like really, it doesn't even really have to be quick or like fast editing, I guess you'd say. It just has to be, you have to know when to cut stuff. You can sometimes do stuff with overlapping voiceover to kind of tie 2 scenes together. Like there's a way you can do it where there's an efficiency to it where you don't really notice it. Like, I mean, I kind of do, just because I'm a nerd about these things, and I've done a little bit of video editing and stuff in the past. So I think I have a little bit more appreciation for it than like some people might. But the trick is that you don't want to notice that like something like editing should be something that you don't really think about during the thing, like during when you're watching it. If you are, it's usually a bad thing, and you're like, why the fuck is this scene in this movie? Why is this like as long as it is, kind of deal. And yeah, you don't really feel that with any of the Friday the 13th movies. I feel like they know their audience. 90 minutes, you get in, you get out, you get your fucking, you know, however many screenings in a day that hopefully will be packed with horny teenagers. This is one of the hornier of the Friday the 13th movies, I feel like.
Yeah,
there's definitely a good chunk in the middle of this where, like, if you just put porno music over the top of it, it would basically be like a porn, because like all of our counselor characters, like their purpose shifts to, well, we gotta get some TNA in here, we gotta get, you know, we gotta, like, sex, drugs, and alcohol are the things that they're being punished for, like, are you have to have in these kind of movies, basically. So they ratchet up the horny in this one for sure.
Yeah, they really, really do. And I think it does, like, once again, I think part 2 has maybe the greater impact on, I think in a lot of respects, leading into a lot of what you just covered, into the template of the franchise moving forward than part 1 necessarily does. Like, part 1 feels like and it's taking nothing away from it. I think part 1's a fucking incredible movie, but it kind of feels like it's the test run, so to speak.
It's a happy accident, basically.
Yeah, which spawns, you know, once again by accident, a character who would go on and become, you know, one of the biggest icons and in horror history. It's a great movie. It's great coming. I mean, you do not need to force me at any time to sit down and watch Friday the 13th Part 2. It's always my pleasure to sit down and rattle through that movie, and it was great to do it on here. When it comes to, like, once again, I mean, I'll give this one a slap on the wrists, mostly because some of the deaths are a bit gnarlier, but there's nothing in this movie that equates to something I would consider being like a community service punishable sort of, criminal record inducing event.
No.
You know what I mean? It definitely has the kills and the spills and the thrills, because I'm rhyming now. But it doesn't have any. There's nothing in here that egregious word that I think I lean into. There's no like Jason rapes someone for no, because we're just going to put that in to mortify people or whatnot. The franchise as a whole weirdly never needs to do that, which I love about it. It just understands that what its audience primarily wants to see is, like you said before, a bit of TNA, a bit of teenagers doing things they probably shouldn't and their parents would not be happy with, and then Jason stalking them. And that's the formula. And that's why it always perplexes me that, people really think that, conversations about how to reboot the franchise and all the rest have went on and on and on ad nauseum. That's what they want. Just do that. Couldn't be any easier. The formula. Guess what? The formula is tried, tested, and true. Because there's a lot of those movies that did it. Just do that. It's a frustrating thing for sure. But yeah, I'm over the moon that we got to check it out, and it's a slap in the wrist for me. What about yourself?
Real quick before I decide what the judgment on this one, I forget because I admittedly dozed off a little bit. I watched this one super late last night for the rewatch. Is this the one that's got the girl that has like she tells the story about like being attacked by Jason out in the woods, or is that part 3?
That's later on. I want to say it's part 4? 3, 4?
You know the one I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
The one that like people kind of insinuate is like, or they like basically say the movie is kind of insinuating that Jason may have like kind of raped her.
Yes.
Which I'd have to go back and rewatch it again. I don't know like how accurate that is, but I've definitely seen people say that.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I think it's implied.
Right.
It is implied.
It's definitely not done as graphically as some of these fucking movies.
Oh no! Like it had this movie come out in the 70s, it would have been the rape would have definitely been in it. There's no way it wouldn't have been there, because that's how we did exploitation movies in the 70s. But no, that is not this movie. They haven't quite like. Jason's
trying to remember that.
Still not kind of formed yet as a character. They're still trying to work out a lot of things with them, including time frame, which has always been the bane of the existence of the Friday the 13th franchises. Well, if Mrs. Voorhees had him then, and it's one of those things where you can imagine a Comic Con and someone putting their hand up. Excuse me, Mr. Voorhees.
Well, actually, in part 3, 90 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, I had a thought last night about these movies where I was like, these kind of like don't really have like you have to throw all that shit out the window getting into these movies.
Yeah,
like,
part 2, 3, and 4 are all set pretty much within a couple of days of each other. Which is nuts. You know what I mean? He basically goes right from part 2 right into part 3, dies in part 3, is like, escapes though, and then comes back and goes on a bloody rampage in part 4. So it all happens in short order. The only kind of time delay between events is between part 1 and part 2. So it's
and then after part 4, it basically kind of just shits the bed, and like you don't really, you don't get a whole lot of continuity. It's foolish to even like try and like connect the dots with the later ones. I kind of just pretend that these movies like kind of take place in like a multiverse, basically. Like Camp Crystal Lake is like its own weird dimension where shit like this just happens. Basically, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking last night. I was thinking of it like in very like comic book kind of terms. It's like, well, there's maybe multiple Jasons in multiple dimensions, and we're just seeing like a slice of this one, and that's why nothing makes any fucking sense, and why slightly supernatural shit happens throughout these movies where Jason can be in multiple places at once kind of deal. You just have to go into it like with the kind of mind frame that like this is not a fucking serious thing. These are like comic booky kind of horror movies intended for teenagers. So yeah, this is definitely coming in with a slap on the wrist for me. This is not, I don't necessarily think you should be showing like little kids these kind of movies, but these are definitely intended for like 13 through 18-year-olds, kind of like it's fine. Your kids are eventually going to probably want to watch these movies, and definitely by the time I was like 11, 12, 13, I was mature enough to watch these. I don't think there's anything super terrible in pretty much any of these, even the weirdo implied rape flashback in the one. But yeah, part 2 is definitely coming on a slap on the wrist from this guy.
Nice. So there we go, ladies and gents. And with that, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we'll be telling you what we're covering next month. Very excited for at least one of the titles. I have not seen the second title, and the name is not inspiring confidence. You will find out what that is right after this.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, Prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
all popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How did you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
And welcome back. So you've been listening to Doing the Nasty podcast. This has been season 2, episode number 6. We covered The Nesting and Friday the 13th part 2. Not a bad movie in this episode. I mean, there's various shades of interest for sure, but at least we got 2 movies which were enjoyable watches. So I'm taking that as a win, Mark Ball.
Yeah, same. This was a good week. These were definitely not. They're far from the worst movies we've seen. Maybe Friday the 13th Part 2 is way up there, like as far as these movies go. Maybe not my favorite. We've got some heavy hitters yet to come on this show, but yeah, I think we did really good this week, actually.
Yeah, well, let's get into some deets about next month. And we were kicking it off with, and I am like over the fucking moon. Blaxploitation is entering the genre of Doing the Nasty with Foxy Brown starring.
Sweet, I haven't seen it in years.
Written and directed by the legendary Jack Hill and starring a fucking who's who of incredible actors and actresses, including a wonderful and, by God, breathtaking performance by the legendary Pam Grier. We also get a little bit of Sid Haig, the genre files out there. You know, a little bit of Sid Haig in there.
That's right, he is in that.
Yep. So, yeah, Foxy Brown is the first of the 2 movies we'll be covering from 1974. How this ever made a nasty list is fucking beyond me. This goes to show, like, every now and again, you kind of start to think you can maybe start to get inside the mindset of the people making the decisions, but then you get, like, Foxy Brown is, on the list for no reason at all that I can think of, unless there's some egregious scene that I totally can't remember. It's the other movie. I've never heard of this movie before. Night Beast from 1980.
I kind of vaguely remember the box for this. This is a big deal with, I think, with a VHS crowd, kind of, just because it had a cool box. Whether the movie's good or not, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it has a 4 out of 10 on IMDb.
That's not good.
Written and directed by Don Dohler. The movie stars a lot of people I'm not familiar with. But yeah, so Night Beast, the synopsis for this one: a creature from outer space crash lands in a small town and starts killing people. So there you go. Right to the point.
Oh no, I think I do remember this.
The creature looks like Rawhead Rex on the cover artwork, by the way.
Yeah, we might be in trouble in July.
Well, at least with Foxy Brown, you have a voluptuous black vigilante takes a job as a high-class prostitute in order to get revenge on the mobsters who murdered her boyfriend. I genuinely love Foxy Brown. I have the Arrow Blu-ray limited edition steelbook upstairs, still in shrink wrap, that I will be busting open for a little bit of Foxy Brown action, and I'm fairly sure Night Beast was on your list of movies that are on YouTube, so we'll do that.
Right. I kind of just remembered I've got a bunch of Doing the Nasty titles on the way from Vinegar Syndrome from their last title I picked up.
Nice.
I'm trying to remember. I got Pigs, I know was one of them. I think one of them's called The Terror or Terror.
Oh,
it's a little bit down the list.
Yeah,
they were all cheap. It was during one of their sales.
Terror's fine. Terror's fine.
$10.
I've just covered Terror on Podcast Under the Stairs. Terror was my favourite out of the movies in the Norman J. Warren box set. Terror is directed by the same dude that did Insemnioid. So.
Okay.
Which is, wait till you see that movie, which is also on the nasty list.
And Spookies was the other one that I picked up on Blu-ray.
Oh wow, nice.
Which I've never seen, but I've seen bits and part of on I think Best of the Worst or some YouTube channel that I watch. Looks fucking bananas.
I can't wait. I have seen it, but it's been many. It's 88 Films put it out over here, so. I've got a copy somewhere upstairs. So yeah, there's tons. See, before, and I won't give people away exactly what month they fall in, but before this year is out, myself and Mark will be reviewing Nightmare City, which I love dearly. It's just fucking bonkers. Yep. Prom Night, The Prowler, and Deep Red before this year is out. So there is some really good ones in here, and with every one of those we have a movie like The Erotic Rites of Frankenstein. So
yeah. So you gotta take the good with the bad.
It's all about Pigs is in the first year though, so if you've got that one in, that's a good thing. We're not covering that till a little bit later in the year, but yeah, so tons of things still to come. But next month we will be doing Foxy Brown and Night Beast, so make sure you get them watched ahead of next month's episode coming late July. Mark, as always, you do a ton of really cool stuff. Where can people check out that stuff?
Find me on the Instagrams. I'm trying to get 2,000 followers by the end of the year. I think I'm up to like 1,180 or something, so I got a ways to go. I post action figure photography and stop motion, pictures of my cat, pictures of my garden, records and Blu-rays and shit that I buy, all that crap on the Instagrams. I've been doing pretty good keeping up with the letterbox, especially for the summer series over on the TPUTS. I think that's just fancy Space Smart on the letterbox. Definitely keep an eye out on the TPUTS main feed, because the summer series, we've already got one of the episodes that I'm on recorded, and I think the next one's going to be here in the next couple weeks or so. We ton of fucking work went into those, and that's pretty much like usually at the beginning of the Doing the Nasty shows we talk about what we've been watching. We didn't do that this episode because literally every fucking movie I've watched for like the last month or so has been for the summer series, and I'm not even done yet. Like if we're gonna be recording the second episode here pretty quick, like maybe next fucking weekend, I need to get cracking and get a couple more of those watched so that I could be thoroughly prepared. So definitely if you aren't already, which I can't imagine you aren't, go subscribe to the main TPUTS feed and keep an eye out for the summer series, which should be coming out here in the next about 2 months or so.
Nice.
Lot of work went into that, so definitely please go check that out.
Excellente. Right, we are going to take our leave of you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Down the Nasty will return in 1 month's time with Boxy Brown and Night Beast. But until then, take care of yourselves and we'll speak to you all next time.
They were called Nasties, and they were nasty.
Some of the things that we've seen are so horrific.
These films not only affect young people, but I believe they affect adults as well.
An extravaganza of gory violence capable of depraving and corrupting those who watched it.
I have never seen a video nasty. I wouldn't. I actually don't need to see what I know is in that film.